for like 1,000?
We're actually just talking about it right now. Our number one fan is a guy named Pete Madden from Wisconsin, Michigan. I don't know.
Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He's an ice surfer.
He's a
he
truck,
surfs on the
truck
Great
driver.
Lakes. Trucker.
Yeah.
He's been here like 4 or 5 times, visited us.
Yeah.
He listens to every show. He comments on every show. He's our number one fan, and he's going to be at our 1,000th show.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So Pete Madden's going to come out.
And he's one of
We're
those.
live?
We've been live for like 5 minutes.
Okay, what's funny is
We'll pay attention.
we're going to dedicate this show to Pete Madden.
Oh,
by the way. Yes, sir.
All
Pete.
right.
On the
Pete,
road.
Surfer.
Pete driving his whole food truck through
Yeah, it's
Milwaukee,
probably
Wisconsin. Icy,
Nasty
shitty,
storm.
God,
Middle of the
horrible.
night somewhere. He's listening to this.
Yeah.
Pete Madden.
We're going to have like a big Pete Madden fan club when he comes to town.
Yeah.
I'll
Oh.
start following him.
Yeah.
Well,
You
and
hear that, Pete?
just so you know, Pete's background was he was a professional wrestler, and
He was
the bleeder.
he was the human wrecking ball.
A human wrecking ball.
The human wrecking ball.
And he would put a little piece of a razor blade in his glove, and he would cut his forehead and be the bloodiest guy in the
Oh, yeah,
ring.
but he's the salt of the earth.
That's a
Yeah.
story.
Salt of the
That's a
earth.
story.
Anyway, we love you, Pete.
Love you, Pete. Number one fan. And
Okay.
he's coming out for the 1,000th show.
Remind me
Yeah.
not to piss you off, Pete.
Yeah, exactly.
And by the time he gets here, this town may be called another name.
It might be.
Who knows? They're trying to take everybody trying to take everything away and move our town, change our town.
Are they going to try to
But
take
the people who
Santa
live here
Cruz
don't want
next?
to move it. And just
We're protecting the name. Let's
We'll
be
be
clear.
Santa Clara or something.
Santa Clarita or
Yeah.
Santa or something. Can't remember.
By the way, everybody, welcome back. This is show number 914, I believe, Neil,
Yeah.
of the Off Lip Radio Show,
Yeah.
directly right here from the Santa Cruz Boardroom in beautiful Pleasure
I
Point.
want to thank the judge last night.
We have a judge.
Yes.
Yep.
Say to Conklin
That was a
for
great
coming on the
show.
show.
See that, Cogliati?
The surfing judge.
Can't talk about that.
No, we couldn't talk about anything.
Can't talk about that.
No.
Can we give you a free pair of socks? Nope. Can't have those.
Yeah.
Can we give you some free surf wax? Nope.
I don't think she's happy with me because I did say, because she's on call 24 hours a day,
Yeah.
if she takes the buzzer when she's getting it on. And that's so I hope I don't ever see her at the judge. She's going to remember that. By the way, welcome back. So tonight we have a very important show. For those of you that live in Santa Cruz, you often look out to the ocean. You see that buoy out there we call the Mile Buoy.
Also, if it's foggy,
You hear the
hear
whistle.
it.
Yeah,
Hear it.
I can actually hear it at my
you don't
home.
have to,
Yeah.
and hearing, you don't have to be on the beach. You could be 2 or 3 miles inland and hear it.
Yeah.
You can hear it.
Well,
For
what's
those
amazing?
that are local, for those that are visiting, the sound is what brings people.
Hang on. Whoa,
The
whoa, whoa.
low bellow.
Tracy Weiss,
Yes, of course, Neil.
executive director.
That's the boss, right?
Yeah.
That is the
she
boss.
is known as, she's the HMFIC.
Yes.
So we'll discuss that later on. And we have Mr. Dan Haifley.
Yeah.
Mr. Dan Haifley, who is a legend here in town.
Legend.
And we're just going to call him the senior environmentalist.
I love that.
Well, thank
You
you.
accept that?
I sure will.
Okay.
All right.
And
we're gonna-
the
we're
reason you guys are here,
Resume there.
There you go.
Yeah.
yeah, and a big resume. The reason they're here, Neil, we have a crisis a mile out, and it's created by the Coast Guard of removing our mile.
Well,
buoy.
I think you say yeah. The question I think they have to answer is why. Why are you taking it? It's been there since 1900. All of a sudden you go,
Right.
yeah, we need to get rid of that thing.
Well,
And that's,
normally,
that's over a century. It's been there.
Yeah, it's
Right?
been there a really long time, since right after 1900.
Come forward, Dan.
It was originally a mile off, a mile due south of the municipal wharf,
Right.
and now it's a mile and a half off due south of the Santa Cruz Harbor, and it's a landmark for everybody.
Right
there.
Right.
and why? I mean, I know that if you want to give raises, you got to cut money, which is a lot of life.
Yeah.
Is it obviously it's a financial situation?
They haven't offered an actual reason yet to why they're making these proposals, because it's not just our buoy. There's a number of buoys up and down the California coast that they're looking at decommissioning. What they're trying to do is replace the physical buoy with like a virtual dot on a map, right? So that it will.
app type of thing?
No,
So
on the
that
chart.
when
There
you're,
is a dot. On
There's
the chart.
a dot,
Yeah.
you know. So when you
Yeah.
have your GPS going, you'll see this virtual dot.
Right.
But again, we all know instruments fail, right? Like
Right.
there's so many people that come up, and the Mile Buoy is such a landmark of our community, right? We see it from the shore. You like you said, the sound is what calls us.
Well, it's a whistle that goes with the buoy as it rises and
Right.
lowers in the waves.
Did they know they were in for a fight, or why don't they just pull up. Why don't they just bring the Coast Guard boat, pull up side, put it in the boat, and take off?
They could have done that. We would have noticed.
A
Somebody
lot
would
of
have
people
noticed.
would have noticed.
Yeah, a lot
And
of
my
people would have
understanding is
noticed.
this is like the third time they've tried to decommission the
Second
Malibu.
time, yeah. So in 2013, this proposal was floated,
Yeah.
bad pun, but the idea was to again replace the Mile Buoy, the virtual dot on a map. And a lot of people responded. It was an avalanche of response, which is happening now. And Congressmember Sam Farr, who was the elected official at the time, wound up meeting with the Coast Guard and said, "There's no way out of this. You have to take this decision, put it to bed." And what the commandant said was, "We're not going to not remove the Mile Buoy. We're going to put the decision to remove the Mile Buoy on hold." So it's been on hold for 10 years, and now the hold is up.
You called it what tonight? You called it a landmark.
It is a landmark.
It's a landmark, right?
Yeah.
I've been fishing for well over 40 years here in Santa Cruz. I had a boat in the harbor for almost 30, and there's times where when I'm coming home, I can't see the harbor.
Right.
There's too many lights on the beach.
Right.
And the buoy is what I zero in on, is the buoy. And whether it's on a chart or not, sometimes I come home with no chart. Like, I have a boat there in the ocean. Things go wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
But to me, more importantly, it's the marker for the J race.
Yeah.
It's the kayak fisherman landmark.
Right.
Who maybe don't have a GPS.
People swim out there.
It's a rite of passage to do a buoy circle on a paddleboard or a kayak. It's like
Right.
there's
Right.
more to it.
Yes.
The Sea Odyssey. I know you guys go around it.
We go around it and we use it all the time. It's a mark that we use for our navigation course, right? So thousands of students every year get a chance to get oriented to what is this landmark. So to remove it would be really detrimental. It would change how they see the landscape of our town.
Can we all? It's a huge group of people wants to stay, right? Can
Absolutely.
everyone? Can we pass the hat around?
Well,
I'm,
in terms of cost, because that's the question is the Coast Guard has never given a rationale, as Tracey said,
Right.
as to why, but it's probably cost. I talked to Sam Farr about this today.
Yeah.
It's probably cost. The federal government, they do these continuing resolutions. The cost of things are going up. The money they're getting is the same, so they're trying to cut costs,
Right.
which is why they want to cut off this list of landmarks and not maintain them anymore.
It would seem easy for them to say, hey, if you guys want, it's in your neck of the woods, it's on your beach, pretty much. This is how much it costs us a year. If you want to take it over, and everyone chip in it.
right.
Yeah. I think that would be tough to do, fundraising for the federal government. That might be a whole thing because you have lots of landmarks up and down the coast or buoys that they'd have to do. There's 45,000 aids to navigation that the Coast Guard has to maintain. So if everybody were to pass the hat, that might be tricky.
Right.
But if we have to do it, we have to do it.
And
This
again,
is-
it's not just our buoy that's at risk here,
Right.
but it's important to call out that, here in the Central Coast Caucus of all of our elected leaders, everyone is together and saying we have to save this Mile Buoy. Not only is it a landmark of our town that is part of our culture, but it serves so many people, right?
Right.
Not only
Right.
It's
those.
also a navigational aid.
That's what I'm saying. It serves our
yeah.
community with the navigation aid for those that are out there kayaking, stand-up paddleboarding, sailing.
Right.
I feel like there's historical
Yeah.
lighthouses.
Yes.
The buoy, in my opinion, is historical and should be labeled such.
Yeah.
To where, and secondly, the Coast Guard maintains it. Well, when they bring the cutter up, they anchor out at the government buoy out there, and they crack open the Budweiser. And they're just out there, and they're like, I don't want to go paint a buoy. Well, that's their job.
It's their job.
Let's get them in the tender and get over there and scrape the bird poop off and keep it clean.
Right.
That's their job, in my opinion. Now, financially, I get it. We're having cuts in all segments of our lives.
Right.
Yeah.
The reasoning to me is, I think, important. I bet there are buoys that could disappear that aren't as important to a community as Mile Buoy.
I would agree. To get rid of Mile Buoy would create a safety hazard for so many, right?
Yeah.
Those that, again, if it's not just about navigating at night or in the dark, but it's when it's foggy, which is happens all the time right here off the coast.
And there's another thing I just want to mention too is that I got an email today. We had a piece in Lookout yesterday, and a woman emailed Lookout, and I talked to her on the phone today. I'm going to read this to you, and it's a bit of a tearjerker, but so I read a piece in Lookout Santa Cruz about potential removal of Mile Buoy. There's another compelling reason that Dan's article did not mention. My late husband's cremains were scattered at Mile Buoy 9 years ago. I deliberately chose that location because it's easy for me to walk out the end of the Santa Cruz Jetty, the West Jetty, which lives in Seabright, spot the Mile Buoy, and say hello to my beloved.
Right.
Wow.
I'm not sure how many other local Santa Cruzans have made the same choice, but I imagine it's in the thousands since 1964 when the harbor was constructed. And I have told people about this email and said, yeah, my brother's out there. Yeah, you know, and so she goes to Mile Buoy
Right.
to say hello to her husband,
Right.
who passed away 9 years ago. It remains, if it were gone, where is he? I mean, he'd still be out there.
Mike, can we pass it off to the Harbor Patrol?
Well,
Is
they're
that-
struggling as
they-
well.
they-
They just raised my slip. I just got the letter today.
Is that something that could be entertained? That you can,
Harbor costs, I mean, they're dredging the harbor, they're maintaining the harbor, law enforcement,
Yep.
costs go up. So the Coast Guard, it's the military.
Yeah.
And if anybody can afford to do this, plus it's the mission of the Coast Guard to be in charge of these 45,000 aids to navigation that they
Right.
manage around the world. It's lighthouses, markers,
Right.
buoys, and you know, I've seen the tender when I was working at the harbor. I see the tender out there once a year. They put a coat of paint on it,
Yep.
check the chain, check the whistle, you know, check the light.
Yeah.
It's not that big of a deal, and
Right.
it's so important. It's like if you cut costs, you're going to remove the Highway 17 sign on Highway 1.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's the same
right.
thing.
Right.
You know, when you're driving down Highway 1 going to 17, you don't look at your navigation or GPS. You look out in the road
Look at the
so you don't
sign.
hit anybody,
Right.
and you look for the sign.
Have we
Right.
got Jimmy Panetta involved in this yet?
Absolutely.
I texted
Okay.
him
Do
the
we-
day I found out about this,
All right.
and they're on it.
Okay.
They're meeting with the Coast Guard this
I'm
week.
gonna message. I just thought about it. Jimmy's the guy.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's our guy. I'm gonna message Jimmy
Yeah.
Sign
He was
myself.
just.
Yeah, he was just
He
on
was
the
just
show a
here.
couple weeks ago, and
Yeah.
I'll hit Emmanuel too.
Yeah.
I told him I'll take him fishing and show him the Mile Buoy. That's his number one guy.
There you go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll do some
But you got to keep your
research.
boat a while longer.
I know.
too.
I will, yeah. I'm gonna
Yeah.
sell it slow.
Yeah.
What just in your brains? How much does it cost to maintain Mile Buoy? Do we have a number on that?
I don't even have
You
a
know,
number.
it's-
No.
I'm not even close.
I mean, you say a coat of paint, check the whistle, and pull on the chain.
Again,
We
they've
saw that-
never given us any indication of what that number is, but really the question is about safety, right?
Mm-hmm.
So does the number really matter when you have thousands, tens of thousands of people that utilize that marker on an annual basis, you know?
Right, right.
So I think it's kind of priceless
Right.
for us to have that.
Well, does it on a Sea Odyssey adventure? Do you round the buoy every time?
Not every time, but if
a
we're
lot?
able to,
yeah, depending on
absolutely.
when.
Yeah.
Because I know when I have a big fat boat,
Yeah.
and every time I do a day sail with family or friends that want to take a tour, I go around the
Around.
wharf, I hit cows,
Yep.
I line up over to Seal Rock,
Yeah.
and then I drift
Yeah.
downhill to Mile
Mile
Buoy,
Buoy.
Yeah.
and I head in from Mile Buoy. And
Exactly.
we usually circle the buoy 2 or 3 times because there's always the cutest
There's
seals
always-
on there.
there's always
you know,
They're
something
bobbing
to be
up and
seen.
down,
Yeah,
going
There's always
ding,
something to be
ding.
seen.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No, the seals are amazing. They're mad at one of them always, and there's
He's
this
always been out
dynamic.
there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a really funny dynamic at the buoy.
Yeah.
There's actually it's like a town of the seals who live on the buoy. It's really amazing.
There's a great photo of Jack O'Neill and
See, I
Jack
know
White.
it. No, I think it was Pat and.
And yeah, it was
Jack.
Pat and
Pat
a
and
couple
Tim.
of others. It was for an advertisement. I'm not sure. Was Tim on there? I'm not
I
sure.
don't think he was.
Was it?
but-
I don't
Okay.
think he
it
was.
was Pat.
But this was in the 60s, and it's a great classic photograph.
I think it was a different.
It was a different buoy.
Different buoy. Yeah.
It was,
okay.
it was Mile Buoy, because they'll
Yeah.
replace it once in a while.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
we were out there a couple of days ago, and there were some people jumping off it, and I was like, "What a! That's the most coolest thing." Now, it's probably not legal. I don't know,
Yeah.
but you know, it's the classic Santa Cruz thing to do. You know, but besides all of that,
That Black Point.
the fact that it's a
Yeah.
such a historical mark for racing, sailboats,
Yeah.
paddle boards, outriggers,
J-race.
kayaks. Yeah, the J race goes
All
around
of
it.
it.
It's
All
just
of it.
to me, it's a historical landmark.
Dan, can you just ask this? It's been there since 1900. So what was its use before the Santa Cruz Harbor was built?
It was used by the municipal wharf because most of the fishing boats were on davits. The Santa Cruz Wharf, which was built in 1914, and before that, the railroad wharf.
So that buoy was there before even the wharf was built.
Yes, it was to the west, so near where the Cowell outfall is.
Yeah.
And so a lot of fishing boats were out there. If you see the old photos, and fishing boats would come, they would be lowered down and go out. They would use Mile Buoy. And then over the years, even after the harbor was built, both boats going off the wharf and the harbor would use Mile Buoy as a landmark. It's in 11 fathoms of water, 66 feet, and it was a major landmark for tourism.
It's also a great halibut fishing spot. You know, Harry Mayo, stationed in the Coast Guard at the end of Santa Cruz Wharf, that was his job, was the boats would fish, he'd go surf.
He's going to shoot those
in the Coast Guard.
He's going to shoot those Japanese.
He was stationed. He'd go surf, paddle back, and get the boats back on the wharf, and that was his job.
That was his job.
There you go. Yeah, but the Coast Guard was actually, they had a station on the end of the wharf.
You're executive director. That was your job previously, right?
It was.
So you're still fighting for stuff.
Yeah,
I thought you were tired. And you're walking down these cliffs every day, hanging out with your kid, relaxing,
Yeah. And get pulled into these things. And
what are you doing?
Dan is an example of
My wife
retirement
asks me that question
failure,
all the
but we
time.
should all be
Retirement
We
failure.
should all be so lucky to have,
Is it retirement failure?
well, he does so much for our community.
Right.
So we are lucky to have him and such a wealth of knowledge.
Thank you. I keep up with Tracey.
He is the Santa Cruz James Bond.
O'Neill, if he is passionate enough to take time to make this happen, it's important. That's how I look at it.
Yeah.
You wouldn't get involved in this if it wasn't important.
No, it's really important. I mean, this is a major landmark, and it's so important. We've had City of Santa Cruz, County of Santa Cruz Port Commission will be taking a position on this. We have all the Central Coast legislators, including the Speaker of the State Assembly, John Laird, Don Addis, Gail Pellerin. We've had Save Our Shores, O'Neill Sea Odyssey.
Is Justin Cummings?
Justin Cummings is going to take a position on this next week with the Board of Supervisors. So he's on it. Yeah, and he's on the Coastal Commission. And of course, the Coastal Commission is about access to the coast, access to harbors, and that's what Mile Buoy is all about.
Well, I think it's important that it doesn't become abandoned, because that's what we can't have, abandoned property, and so we have to have somebody claim ownership and be responsible so that we can continue the tradition of the Mile Buoy. And hopefully with getting Jimmy Panetta involved, because again, I just can't state how important that buoy is to recreation, boating, safety of our community.
Yeah, exactly.
It's huge.
What can the public do to get involved?
The public can send an email or send a letter to the Coast Guard, and I have an email address here.
Can we zoom in on that, Neil?
Zoom in on that.
Is that on the bottom?
It's on the bottom.
On the bottom.
There. It's Lieutenant Junior Grade Samantha Hugh. The email does not spell out that name.
Right here. I got it.
And she is accepting emails. There's also a phone number, which we did not print because she'd be inundated with phone calls.
Yeah.
But send an email with your reasons, your personal reasons, to keep Mile Buoy.
And
Before April 3rd.
By the way, for the podcast, can you read that email address?
Yeah, it is Samantha.gkoval, Koval, at ucge.mil.
And we'll put that on our social media. Let's do that as well.
Yeah.
So that,
I'll take that one with me tonight.
take that
You
one.
can take that one for sure.
You guys can take these too.
I have my own personal story about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it a good
Which I'm
one?
going to write, huh?
Was it involving a female?
No.
We look forward to reading the story.
Yes, sir.
Assuming you mentioned the Harbor Commission, and which is my next question, is the harbor behind saving the buoy?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because I feel like that's probably one of our wisest voices of reason with the Coast Guard is when the harbor is requesting this is important.
Yeah, I'm working with the chair of the current Port Commission currently, Steve Reed, to get a letter into the Sentinel coming up here shortly. So we're all working together, right? We all see that this is an important safety issue and trying to figure out how the best way to do that.
If the Coast Guard decide to come along and pull this thing and disappear with the thing, can we put our own out there?
I don't know the rules around that.
Can we?
You
Can we all chip in for
We
the
could conceivably do that. We'd have to maintain it.
It would blow away because we couldn't use
sponsored?
we
You know,
wouldn't be
Mile
able to
Buoy
use that.
sponsored.
Or as
Mile
big.
Buoy sponsored by O'Neill or whoever. You know,
Yeah.
Joby or.
I think it's really helpful, though, for it to be part of a national network and a
Okay.
statewide network, and that the Coast Guard keep very standard. You know, there's the stripes have to be a certain way, keep everything consistent on a national basis
Okay.
and on a West Coast basis. So I think it's really helpful to be part of the boat. If we have to, we will.
Okay.
There is an anchor
So this-
down there at 66 feet of water,
Right.
a mile and a half offshore.
Yeah.
I always thought it was a giant block of cement.
It probably is.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That's what I meant by an anchor.
Yeah.
I didn't mean an actual anchor.
But I don't know what's down there.
Yeah.
And, you know, and that's the thing is like, you know, when the chain drops, is that litter? You know,
Yeah.
like what? So it's important to maintain the
Yeah.
buoy.
And if you haven't been out to the buoy, you might want to go to the Santa Cruz Wharf, get a wharf boat, and go check out the buoy because it is so
It's busy
cool.
out there. It's busy.
Yeah.
Sea lions and sea life and
Well,
people.
the
It's
little
just-
fish
Yeah.
hang around that chain, and where the little fish are, the bigger fish are, and where the bigger fish are, there's fishermen. And so if you ever look out there, and there's a bunch of boats around it, you know why.
You know why? Yeah, exactly.
Right.
But it's such a I feel like the toast of Santa Cruz are things like the Mile Buoy.
Absolutely.
You know,
But
it's,
this is-
it's iconic.
This is a cost-cutting program for other buoys around the nation or California.
It's probably around the nation. So
Okay.
this notice to mariners is District 11, which is the west coast of Nevada,
Okay.
basically. And I see a list of about
There was
11, 12 buoys here on the
Yeah.
California coast: Los Angeles, Long Beach, Redondo Beach, Oceanside, Tamales Bay, Point Arena, Pillar Point. So it's a significant number of buoys.
And, you know, you think of Pillar Point, treacherous harbor.
Yeah.
You think of Point Arena, treacherous landing.
Exactly.
You know,
Right.
and so these buoys are.
They're important.
I mean,
Yeah.
here's my problem: when somebody gets hurt, you know, because of a mistake. And again, the Coast Guard's theory, Neil, is they got GPS. They don't need a stinking buoy. But you know what? No.
No.
Yeah.
Instruments fail.
They do.
You know, when you have these little virtual dots, it's just not the same.
We get
So-
pea soup fog here.
Absolutely.
We do.
You
Yeah.
know, and there's times where that horn is it feels like a safety blanket.
But the thicker the fog, the bigger the horn.
Yeah, it's
Seems
true.
like, right?
Yeah.
I was separated from some friends on a kayak at 5 in the morning about 10 years ago, and I couldn't see 2 feet in front of me. I had to triangulate. Yeah, right. You know, you had the Walton Lighthouse foghorn, you had the Mile Buoy foghorn, and you had the other lighthouse foghorn, and that's how I got back in because I couldn't see a thing.
Yeah.
And my friends made it in very similarly too after I did, but otherwise I would have been out there for hours. You know.
It's you know what's interesting. We fish there a lot, and you don't really know when you drift how far you go in a drift because it's hard to see when you're that far out. You're a mile and a half off the coast,
Right.
but you see how far you drift away from the buoy
Yeah.
because the buoy gets smaller,
Yeah.
and so you can really see when it's time to pull up the lines and move back up the line and
Yeah.
start again. And the
right.
buoy is like that visual is
Yeah.
for the fishing. I'm talking fishing, not safety particularly, but it is. We use that constantly.
A lot of people, a lot of paddleboarders use it. We went there for the J race a couple of times, yelling at people. And,
Yep.
Well, the time that were you on the boat when we saved the paddlers?
yeah.
They stopped at the buoy because they knew the safety sweep would be coming around the buoy.
Oh, no.
And we had a hypothermic Hawaiian that was terrifying, but
Yeah.
he stopped at the buoy because he knew that it was a marker and people would be coming around it, and that was scary. He was shaking. I mean, that was scary.
Yeah.
And
Well,
Yeah.
we need to keep
Yeah.
the Mile Buoy. We need to keep it. It needs to stay.
Yep.
It's important.
It's a landmark, an ocean mark. Or
so
landmark.
one more time, can we say that? Get your pens out, folks. We're gonna give you that.
So by April 3rd,
What's
you need to send an
the email?
email to, and it is,
Back one.
the email address is samantha.koval@uscg.mil.
God.
And
Perfect.
tell her, Lieutenant Junior Grade Samantha Hu, tell her why the Mile Buoy should stay, your personal reasons, and that they should not remove it.
Awesome.
All right.
So I'm going to do a shortcut here. Since you're here, we're going to, since the spring's coming up, What's going on this year with the Sea Odyssey? What do you got? What do you guys got coming up?
We got spring program happening now.
Okay.
So
Oh,
we
you do?
have, yeah, absolutely. We've got program happening currently.
For the kids?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll have program running up through the end of May. I encourage anyone that's interested in applying for next year's program, let us know. Send us a note. We're going to be opening applications at the start of May, and would encourage everyone to apply.
And how do they do that? How do they get a hold of you?
You just need to look at our website, o'neillseaodyssey.org.
And do we have a count on how many kids have been on Sea Odyssey?
We are just over 125,000 students.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Jack's, as you guys know,
Yeah,
Jack got stuck with that boat when they wouldn't let him launch his balloon off it anymore.
Yeah.
So he turned it into a classroom. And how awesome to have now, to have Jack's vision of that and all those kids. And I bet some of them have turned into scientists.
They all have, and we've heard stories again and again of kids that have come out on the boat, got really excited. I was just talking to a woman this week who now works up at another environmental education foundation in the Bay Area, and she's like, lives here in town. She's like, I remember. I came out on the boat in 5th grade.
Wow.
Yeah.
Got the
And so-
microscope.
yeah, and it's one of my favorite moments, walking around. The number of times you hear, like, I remember. I remember leaving the harbor for the first time. And it's just one of those memories that is so ingrained.
A
So-
lot of school kids.
Jack's up there smiling right
For
now.
Yeah,
sure,
I know.
absolutely.
Real quick, somebody wrote here, which is true. This is a good point, Mr. Jer Leo. Some small
Jeremy.
boats,
Dare.
some small boats don't carry GPS.
Absolutely.
That's
Right.
right.
And kayakers.
So you don't have
Yeah.
iPhone, you don't have nothing going on.
And without Mile Buoy,
You got nothing.
You'd be in
You
trouble.
got nothing.
You got
Right.
nothing.
Well,
Hi,
and like
Jared.
I said too, I've had electronics. They just stop working. It's just life, and we all get
I've
towed
seen you
home.
in your boat. I mean, the thing
We all
is
know
rocking.
Monty.
Next thing, the thing is sinking for crying out loud.
My boat? Oh no! Like, give me a tsunami or a giant sunfish, I can damage any boat. It's really important to save the buoy. Like I said, I feel like it's a historical landmark. I think the Coast Guard should treat it that way.
Yeah.
And it's really important to our community.
Yeah.
And if you can take a second and email
Make your voice
Samantha,
Yeah.
it's a good thing for everybody. So please
Yeah, it
do
really
that.
is.
Thank
Neil?
you for letting us talk
telling
about
my
some
story.
stories.
Yeah. Oh, you got your story? Okay, I'm ready for the story.
Okay.
Remember I used to do the sunset, sunrise videos?
Yes.
Santa Cruz Weiss? So I'm out there at the end of the wharf, December, and I'm freezing my ass off. There's no one out there, but it's crystal clear. And I'm holding my phone like this, and this hand will freeze, and next, like that. So when people write, as you know, people write during our shows, somebody wrote like a big piece of prose, right? So after I was done filming the sunset, I go back to my car and I go, I want to read what this person said. And the person said, hey, dear Neil, this is so-and-so from Nottingham, England. And she goes, my son has had autism since he was 6 years old. And today he heard the buoy, and he watched the sunset, and he heard the sea lions, and he started talking. And he's 13 years old. 13 years old, and he started talking.
Yeah.
Because he heard the Mile Buoy, and he heard the sea lions.
Wow.
That's amazing.
That is an amazing
True story.
story.
And we could have a million Mile Buoy stories.
Yeah.
Because
The one where you did. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, like the note you got,
Yeah.
like that.
I mean,
Exactly.
stories of safety, stories
Right.
of inspiration, stories of connection,
Right.
and
Or,
just like how
family
it
members.
impacts the landscape of our community. So
It's worth fighting for.
worth fighting
And thank you guys for fighting for it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because
Thank you for having us.
it's
You got
really,
Haifley,
it's really important.
You packing a punch right here.
Yeah,
You got Mike Tyson.
I know. Oh, for sure. He comes out of retirement to save Mile Buoy.
Absolutely.
Watch out.
Oh God, here he comes again.
Coast Guard's gonna be like,
Oh, what is he doing here?
We're going to get rid of that boy. Let's make sure Haifley's retired first.
yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, make sure- oh wait, they thought he,
He's sitting
they thought he was
he's sitting in
gonna
his
roll
lounge
over.
chair, and then we'll go get the damn thing.
Mike
Oh, no.
Tyson's back.
Where's
Mike Tyson's back.
Coast Guard, you're screwed.
All right. And by the way, here's a photo of Mile Buoy. If you guys are
Sure
curious.
is.
Yeah, that's our Mile Buoy right there.
And by the way, Coast Guard has a great history of the Santa Cruz Harbor. Just, I think this is just a bad decision, and we just need to tell them
It's a bad
we need to
decision.
fix this.
Yeah.
And I think we have the right people. When you're talking about the leaders,
Yeah.
the harbor,
Yeah.
that's when the team gets together and gets things done.
Yeah.
Is when
Yeah.
everybody is on
Just
the
send
same
them
page.
Kinnaman.
Kinnaman's into it.
Yeah, Don Kinnaman. There you go. Talking about teamwork.
Yeah, Don's the man.
Don's the man.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I love Don.
Still, Don Kinnaman is one of the top 3 off-the-net radio show stories of all time. Which we will tell you after the
Yeah,
show.
yeah.
All right.
That'll be after
I'll
hours.
remind him when I see him walking on East Cliff. Yeah.
Dan, Tracy, thank you for coming.
Gosh,
Yeah,
thank
thank
you for
you.
having
Yeah.
us.
See
We
you, Odyssey.
appreciate it.
These guys couldn't. This is show number 915. It'll be on YouTube a little later on. You can share it whoever you want.
Great.
Get the word out there. Let's keep the Mile Buoy where it is.
Right, let's thank T. Fox for having us on Santa Cruz Waves.
Definitely, thank you.
Yeah. All right, you
All right.
guys.
All right,
We'll
thank
see you
you
next
all.
week
Send
on
an
the Off the
email.
Lip.
Yep.
Get your
Thank
emails
you.
in.
All right.
Bye.